Greetings, my fellow from Low South and Thinkers, LL3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy Mangrove of South Florida, and today's date is Wednesday, August 8th, 2018. Yes, I decided to do a brief episode, all in good faith. I just had, after I did the last show on the BSO's jail care program, got on a video by Lisa Haven and talked about what's going on with the purge and, of course, media control from the movies. A lot of it came from many of them came from the 410 movies came out from the Pentagon. However, I'm not going to be talking about that. Talking about more of the social media purge, which something like this has happened during the time of, you can say, Nazi Germany, if people can recall. Absolutely. So, I could thank her. We're talking about that one topic. And I'm going to narrate this here for you from the Charisma News. It's just an opinion. Oh, okay, cool. It's back up. It's back up. And is it from, it says here, Americans, read this urgent warning from Dr. James Robinson. It came out today around 7 a.m. James Dobson here. And that's my first time I've ever heard about this man. He goes, Dr. James Dobson is the founder and president of Family Walk, has asked that I share this important message with you from his website. Dear friends, I would like to tell you about an experience Shirley and I had while visiting the cultural centers of Europe about 20 years ago. One of the cities that we toured was Berlin, Germany. I've been fascinated since I was a child with World War II and what made the adults around me so fearful. I have wondered in soon years how highly educated and intelligent Germans could have been so corrupted and deceived by the propaganda that laid the foundation for tyranny. It is difficult to comprehend how so many Christian churches with their good people fell prey to the lies screamed by Adolf Hitler and his evil cohorts. Even before he revealed his murderous intentions, they stood with their arms and hands extended, cheering rapidly for a man who was to become one of the most ruthless dictators in world history. I searched for an understanding of the processes that led to the torchlight parades, book burning, racial hatred, mass killing of Jews, Gypsies, Poles, homosexuals, and pitifully disabled and mentally ill people. Though most Germans didn't know about the extermination camps, the majority favored his preparations for war. Many books have written on that subject, but I needed to see it for myself. I found an explanation, at least partially, on the streets of Berlin. One morning, I paid a small fee to be included in a walkabout tour of the important buildings and the sites from the Nazi era. An articulate professor led our group and recounted what happened before and during the war. I was taking notes furiously as he spoke. First, we stood outside Germans' Göring's headquarters. Second, he was second in command after Hitler. Then we walked past Goebbels' propaganda ministry, from which he spread lies and fake news during the 1930s and 40s. Our group then stopped outside Gestapo headquarters, where so many people tortured and murdered for daring to oppose the regime. Demons seemed to leer from the windows and rooftops. The tour ended at a parking lot that now sits over the bunkers where Hitler spent his last days. He eventually committed suicide with his wife of less than 40 hours, Eva Braun. Most of the city was demolished by Allied bombing, but these historic locations remain intact because they were reinforced by steel and concrete. The tour lasted 2 hours, during which I learned how the Nazis managed to enslave the German people and then molded them into a force that devastated and conquered almost every country in Europe. Millions of people around the world held their breath as destiny hung in the balance. What the professor told us remained in my memory today. The Nazi success was made possible by one primary factor. It was their complete and utter control of the means of communication. There was no internet or television at the time, of course, but what did exist reached every dimension of the nation. Radio was highly effective in those days, as were newspapers, films, speeches, books, and magazines, posters, rallies, and yes, public schools and universities. Every word spoken in Germany was scrutinized, and those who rejected Nazi lies publicly were often murdered or sent to concentration camps from which most didn't return. Terror was the stock in trade of the Gestapo. It was common occurrence for secret police to knock on the doors of everyone who didn't conform to the party line. An offender will be dragged outside and shot, leaving terrifying images and warnings for the neighbors to see. It told them what would happen if they also got out of line. Even children were urged to report the activities and private conversations of their parents who talked at home about their opposition of the gangsters in government. They were tortured or murdered too. What a ghastly period in human history. Speaking of children, one of the most wretched elements of the dictatorship was the complete domination of public schools. Parents had no influence on how their boys and girls were educated. In fact, all schools became training centers for Nazi propaganda. The boys were prepared for war, and girls in their mid-teens were actually sent to camps where they were expected to get pregnant from sexual contact with nearby boys. Babies born out of wedlock from these encounters became wards of the state to replace men likely to be killed in battle. Here's how Adolf Hitler viewed public schools. He said, "Your children belongs to us already. What are you? You will pass on. Your decadents, however, now stand in the new camp. In a short time, they will know nothing but this new community." Later, as war approached, he said, "This new Reich will give its youth to no one." If you want to know about this tragic era, read The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by William Shire. While I'm recalling these bitter memories, this historic account is relevant today because America and other European nations have for decades been losing their God-given rights that define us as free people. We are not experiencing Nazi-like tyranny yet, but we are steadily being expected to think, speak, write, and act in a prescribed manner in conformity with what is now called political correctness. The mainstream media has become a tool to influence elections and spread this belief system. Sadly, the rights handed down to us by our forefathers more than 200 years ago are gradually being overridden, ignored, contradicted, or disregarded by the courts and legislators. Alice, we are less free now than we were even 5 years ago. As I hope you learn in school, although it is unlikely, the principles on which our freedom was built are spelled out in the first 10 amendments to our Constitution. They are called the Bill of Rights. First among them addresses the most important guarantee. It promises religious liberty and includes these words: Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the exercise thereof. Despite what you may have heard, nothing within the Constitution mentions the separation of church and state. To paraphrase the First Amendment, it not only offers an ironclad guarantee that you will enjoy the freedom of religion, but also promises freedom of speech, a press, protects the rights of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government when citizens are aggrieved. These rights are fundamental for a liberated person. The other 9 amendments within the Bill of Rights enumerated additional assurances to the people that their government will have restricted authority over them. Alexander Hamilton wrote in Federalist Papers 84 that the Constitution tells Congress what limited powers has to make law, and the Bill of Rights reiterates to Congress what powers does not have to infringe on our rights. Anything would be considered licensed journalist, gun control by any means, etc., is null and void. Just to give you those 2 examples, even the war on drugs, only having possession of marijuana for your own personal use. Those laws in the books are illegal, null and void, period. It's all can be nullified. And the train is coming by. So bear with me here. And I will continue on in a moment. Reflecting this affirmation, Abraham Lincoln said in his Gettysburg Address that ours is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. These insurances are precious to us today. And I thank God for the dedicated men who inspired and fought for them. We dare not let officials, justice, judges, legislators, or politicians take even one of them away from us. But some liberals today are diligently trying to just do that. We must stop them. But how? Our rights are being trampled every day. The only way to defend our liberties is at the ballot box. Unfortunately, more than half Americans, including majority Christians, don't even bother to vote. Shame on them all. Don't they know that tyranny for us and our children is only one generation or even one election away? We must vote to elected leaders who will defend what has been purchased with the blood of patriots who died to protect our liberty. We owe it to the memory of their sacrifice to preserve what they do for us. We must not fritter it away on our watch. If any politicians tell you he will fundamentally change this nation, that means that he has planned to undermine our Constitution and take away our heritage of freedom. Run from him or her. Actually, I say call these parasites out and tell them like it is. Are you a tyrannical butt boy, butt girl, Uncle Tom, or Aunt Jemima? That's what I'll be saying to them. Now, I say it with a big smile on my face. Let me illustrate what can happen in a country that doesn't respect basic human rights as they have been understood historically. The Parliament of Canada, our neighbor to the north, passed a act into law on June 19, 2017. It's called the Genders Rights Bill, and it imposes jail time and fines on anyone who uses inappropriate pronouns with regard to gender identity, gender expression, race, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, age, sex, sexual orientation, marital status, family status, genetic characteristics, disability, or conviction of an offense for which the pardon has been granted. Forget the laws protecting freedom of speech. Violations that this act are considered to be hate crimes in Canada's criminal code. How does that supersede the Canadian Constitution? Its passage has been lauded by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as a step toward equality. No, it's a step toward tyranny for our Canadian friends. And Justin Trudeau is nothing more than a Club of Rome butt boy. That's how I look at him. For so much for free speech and thought, how about here in America? In my lifetime, I have witnessed the steady erosion of the principles that made this country great. Here are a few examples of what the judiciary has done or attempted to do in this great land of the free. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in California have done more to unhinge liberty than any other court. Some call it the Ninth Circus. In 2015, for example, it upheld an outrageous legislative measure that forced pro-life clinics, which are dedicated to the sanctity of human life, to promote abortions with their patients and to place posters on the walls telling them where they can go to kill their babies. That became law of the land in 9 western states for 32 months. Thanks to President Trump's nomination and the Senate's subsequent confirmation of Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court, the ruling was overturned this past June by a vote of 5-4. How close the court came to decimate freedom of speech in those clinics. Many other critical issues related to the Bill of Rights have been decided by a single vote. And I can make this clear, my friends, and this is my addition. We have a 3-vote system in the United States of America as a republic. Vote in the ballot box, grand jury, jury box for trials. We can nullify. They can make the Ninth Circuit Court can say whatever the hell they want, but every state within that area can do a nullification, giving them the middle finger, and it's legit. I will proceed. Here's another. In Erbigfeld versus Hodges, 2015, the Supreme Court redefined marriage and has been protected in law and celebrated internationally for more than 5,000 years. The decision was 5-4 and eliminated the exclusivity of marriage between a man and a woman in 31 states. How does that supersede states' law, states' rights? 5 justices imposed that cultural earthquake on America. Let me describe that ruling in another way. The laws protecting traditional marriage in 31 states were summarily invalidated. The citizens in those 31 states had recently gone to the polling places and vote to define marriage as being exclusively between one man and one woman. By a single vote, an arrogant, imperialist, unelected justices and 4 colleagues of the Supreme Court overrode the will of the people and swept away collective decisions of the populace. It's interesting about that because these people don't realize a marriage license is commercial law, not natural law. And all these people, and all those folks that supported same-sex marriage and all that, they've been suckered by getting a license from that state. So it's nothing really to celebrate about on your natural-born rights. I'm an individual in good faith that's not my field, okay? But I'm not there to condemn either. But always got to read between the lines on what these individuals, the black robes of the Washington, D.C., will have to tell everybody else. I will proceed. These 5 unelected imperialist justices imposes a cultural disaster on America. Some court watchers said it was a tantamount to Roe versus Wade decision in 1973 because it helped to undermine the institution of marriage. The family will never be the same. Lincoln's words at Gettysburg became hollow. Whatever happened to the promises that ours is a government of, by, and for the people? What Herbis those pious justices demonstrated with their votes. In my opinion, this is the next example stands as one of the most outrageous assaults on parental rights in American history. Children attending Mesquite Elementary School in Palmdale, California, came home one afternoon and told their parents what had happened to them in class. It was a shocker. One of their teachers, with administrative approval, sat for hours with students aged 7 to 10 to assure that each of them completed 79 items on a questionnaire. The kids, barely out of babyhood, were required to respond to highly personal questions about their private thoughts, including 10 items about their sexuality. Permission was neither requested nor discussed with parents. The children were asked about such topics as frequencies of thinking about having sex and thinking about touching other people's private parts, among many others. The parents were incensed, wouldn't you be, and filed a suit in both federal and district courts against the school district for invading their children's privacy and the parents' right to control the upbringing of their children. They were desperately trying to defend the innocence of their children, but to no avail. The court ruled that there's no fundamental right of parents to be the exclusive provider of information regarding sexuality or education of their children. Both district and federal courts dismissed the case. One of them asserts that their parents have no right to determine what their sons and daughters will be exposed while to enroll in California's public schools. I can say to all those judges that dismissed those cases, you're nothing more than treasonous parasites. That's right. Treasonous. Less patriotic than Benedict Arnold. When parents appealed their case, it went where else? To the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in California. You can guess what happened there. The judges upheld the lower court ruling in favor of the school district and concluded that education is not merely about teaching, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Education, they said, serves higher civil and social functions, including rearing of children into healthy and responsible adults. In other words, parents get lost. Talk about mind control 101. It reminds me when I read that book, The People versus the Police State versus the People by the late Aaron Zellman. Doing it for your own good. I screamed to the high heavens when this ruling came down. Most residents in California and accepted the invasion with a whimper. What a tragedy. I could envision the founding fathers rolling in their graves, and if they were alive today, thinking is what we fought for the American Revolution for. Time and space will not permit. She cites similar horrendous rulings from unelected and imperialist judges. Instead, I am excited to end my letter with some encouraging news. For the first time since the courts began to run things in the 1960s, the judiciary is changing dramatically. It is true. Some good things are starting to happen. In June, the court overturned a ruling against Jack Phillips, who believes would not allow him to bake a wedding cake for homosexual activists. The assault of religious liberty failed by a 5-4 decision. You can understand why the far left is in a state of panic today. It's looking for anything on which to hang its opposition to Judge Kavanaugh, which, I did a podcast on that. I'm not really too keen with. Do your homework on this man before jumping the bandwagon, one way or the other. Or one other criticisms is that while in college, he put ketchup on his pizza. Are you kidding me? Does anyone else see the evidence of desperation here? So far, President Trump has nominated 44 judges who have been confirmed to the bench, and there are many others, 88 in the pipeline. There is hope for additional conservative and common sense decisions to be handed down in the future. It is a matter for sincere prayer among those of us who have longed for the relief of judicial tyranny. Thanks for letting me speak from my heart this month. This newly established Dr. James Dobson Family Institute, which consists of Family Talk, the Policy Center, the Education, and the Digital Library, is working hard to defend righteousness and family values on the home front. We will continue to speak for those who agree. Please join us as we do. Ours can be a lonely vigil unless the defenders of the Constitution, particularly considered Christians, stand shoulder to shoulder with us in this struggle. We and other conservative organizations are winning the public square. There is no time to go wobbly. So, I'll see what I'll do right here. It says here, please don't forget to support this ministry while you can. Contributions in July were discouraging. We'll hang in there if you help us pay our bills. Thank you so much. Blessings on you all. That's Todd Starnes, who did the commentary. But James Dobson did this. And I got to say, see what's been happening, there's some things that are occurring. Government controlling the people. Remember, government are the enemies of liberty. Period. It doesn't matter what your creed is, where you come from. If you're a like-minded critical thinker, they hate you. Period. Government in Latin means control of the mind. Government has slaughtered the most murderous institution in history. 20th century alone, 170 million were brutally murdered, non-combatants. And democide is 260 million. That's the kind of people you want. You want the government to do everything for you. A person like that are weak and pathetic. I know those folks out here come from other countries. They got that mindset, but they're learning. Many of them are learning. That's good. So that's why I don't go after ethnics. I go by ethics. There are people who are born here, want them to just protect them for everything. Even they get offended. If someone criticizes me when I had to, government today, they went to, he hurt my feelings, he called me out. Just like that. And I'm being a little sarcastic. But that's one thing for sure, my friends. It's the damn truth. This is why everyone has to be vigilant. Keep these individuals on their toes. You never trust them, period. Whether from the federal, state, or local level. Even these city managers, they're not your friend either. Plain and simple. It doesn't matter what party they're from. Political party. Or who they're seeing, who they're blowing. And I'm digressing. Stand up for what's right. Exercise your natural born rights, period. If you believe President Trump is going to save the Constitution, then to me you're looking for a man on a white horse. It doesn't work that way. We have those obligations. We have our duties. Declaration of Independence said so, written by Thomas Jefferson. And that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or when you send something that's interesting, you might want to check out. Wherever you do, please address your correspondence with decorum. You hit me all these social media websites. Just type in Loki Luck number 3 or Roman numeral 3 on the search engine. You'll find me everywhere. In addition, you can email me at LokiLuck number 3 at gmail.com. or to the Proton Mail supporters. You love encryption, I do too. Loki Luck numbers 03 at protonmail.com. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.